Gather close, younglings. Circle the luminous pool. Yes, 6 tentacles behind your backs, just as I've shown you. Better. Tonight, I will speak of the fall of the greatest empire the cosmos has ever known. Our empire, the Voxarian Dominion. But Elder Xantix, little Plavox interrupted, her facial ridges glowing with curiosity. Our history texts say the Dominion collapsed because of economic failure and rebellions in 17 sectors. Ha! What amusing nonsense they feed you now. Economic collapse, rebellion. Those were only symptoms, never the true cause. No, our mighty civilization, spanning 3 spiral arms and ruling the resources of 12,000 worlds, was brought to its knees by a single human. Just one man, with a torch. A torch like fire? Plavox asked, her compound eyes blinking in puzzlement. Not literal fire, you silly hatchling, though in many ways, yes. He carried a figurative flame, a revolutionary blaze, the kind that devours civilizations and leaves only ash behind. Let me begin at the start. I was a mid-level security administrator on Voxaria Prime, our homeworld, in the final days of the Dominion. The first whispers of this human reached us from the Outer Rim, a forgotten little world called Tarago 4. Nothing remarkable, just another mining colony feeding neodymium to our warship foundries. The report landed on my desk on an otherwise unremarkable day. Disturbance at Mining Outpost 47. 1 human prisoner escaped. 3 guards dead. Property damage minimal. Threat level. Negligible. Negligible? But that sounds serious, one of you murmurs from the back. Ah, sweet, naive hatchling. You must grasp the scale of the Dominion. 3 guards? We had millions. 1 escaped prisoner? We held billions under our control. Such notices crossed my desk 20 times a day from across the galaxy. I simply marked it for follow-up and moved on. Standard procedure. 3 cycles later, another report arrived. Communications outage on Tarago 4, cause unknown. Estimated repair time, 2 standard rotations. That was the first time a tentacle of concern twitched. Mining worlds don't simply go silent. They're far too valuable. I sent a routine inquiry to Sector Command. Their reply, probable equipment malfunction, maintenance vessels dispatched. Continue monitoring. So I did. And for 16 rotations, nothing changed. Then, without warning, 3 more mining colonies in the same sector went dark, simultaneously. Coincidence is the refuge of the simple-minded, my superior administrator Caldrax often said. So I assembled a report linking the escaped human to the spreading communications blackouts. I sent it straight to Caldrax, bypassing the usual channels. His reply was immediate. Do not waste my time with paranoid delusions about a single human causing systemic disruptions. Humans are barely space-capable primitives. Focus on real threats. In hindsight, that dismissal was our first great mistake. But how could we have known? Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, small, soft-skinned beings with notable endurance, but little else remarkable. Their homeworld had been partially absorbed into the Dominion only 30 cycles prior, and most humans served as laborers or as oddities for the amusement of the elite. 8 more rotations passed. I was moments from ending my shift when every alarm in the security hub erupted at once. Not 1 or 2, all of them, simultaneously. What's happening? I demanded, my voice barely audible over the wailing alarms. My aide, Envox, was frantically cycling through incoming reports. It's impossible. We're receiving simultaneous rebellion alerts from all 17 mining worlds in the Tarago sector. The garrisons are under attack. By whom? Show me visuals. The screens lit up, spilling chaos into the room. Mining complexes ablaze, comms towers toppling, Voxian soldiers fleeing in disarray. Among the attackers were humans and other local species, fighting side by side. How many attacking ships? I asked, already running the numbers for a counterstrike. Envox's ridges had gone pale. None, Administrator. No ships have entered the sector for 30 rotations. That's impossible. These are coordinated strikes. They must have external support. There's mention of a leader, Envox said softly. A human. They call him the Torchbearer. My blood chilled. One human. The escaped prisoner. Within a single day, the entire sector was gone. 17. Worlds, billions in resources, and a key gateway to the Clavarian Nebula, all lost. The High Council erupted in fury. Sector Command was executed for incompetence. I was promoted to replace them, charged with ending the crisis. My first act was to pull the full dossier on the human. Name, Darius Thorne. Captured 3 cycles prior. Smuggling restricted tech to the mining colonies. The interrogation logs were maddeningly incomplete, except for one exchange. Why risk your life for aliens you barely know? Because freedom isn't species-specific, you tentacled tyrant, and someone needs to light the way. The file included a psych assessment, subject displays extreme resilience, and an alarming ability to unify disparate species. Recommend immediate termination. That recommendation had been overruled by someone at Central Command. Thorne was instead sent to the labor camps on Tarago 4, another grave mistake. I assembled a task force of our most cunning military minds. This human, this torchbearer, must be found and eliminated. Allocate whatever resources are required. General Vrazi, a decorated veteran of the Andromeda campaigns, actually laughed. With respect, Administrator, you are overreacting. One human, no matter how clever, cannot pose a significant threat to the Dominion. We will crush this little rebellion with standard protocols. So we deployed standard protocols. 3 battle cruisers, 50,000 troops, enough firepower to subjugate an entire system. The Torchbearer emerges. They never returned. Instead, 3 rotations later received a broadcast on all frequencies. Darius Thorne filled our screens, a disarmingly average human with dark hair and eyes that seemed to burn with an inner light. People of the Dominion, he said, his voice calm but resonant. Your ships have been captured intact. Your soldiers have been given a choice, join us or be detained. Most chose to join us because deep down, everyone recognizes oppression, even those who enforce it. Razix slammed his tentacles on the console. Lies our troops would never to the leadership of the Voxiarian Dominion. Thorne continued. Consider this a formal declaration. You call yourselves an empire, but you're just bullies who grew too big. Every empire in history has the same weakness. They forget that control is always an illusion. I'm not here to defeat you. I'm here to remind everyone under your boot that they outnumber you. I'm just one man with a torch, but that's all it takes to start a fire. But the broadcast ended. The room fell silent. Find him, I whispered, whatever it takes. But finding Darius Thorne proved impossible. While we focused our attention on the Tarago sector, similar uprisings erupted in the Kronos and Vega sectors, always the same pattern. Communications would go dark, and days later the entire sector would erupt in coordinated rebellion. Always with reports of the Torchbearer's presence. How is he traveling between sectors without detection? I demanded, during an emergency council meeting. Perhaps. He isn't suggested Counselor Zivix. Perhaps these are copycat rebellions, but intercepted communications proved. Otherwise, it was always him somehow appearing, where our defenses were weakest, inspiring the local populations and even our own troops to turn. Against us 3 months into the crisis, we'd lost control of 8 sectors. The High Sovereign himself took command of the response, deploying the Sacred Fleet, our most powerful military force never before used against internal threats. I was there on the command ship when we arrived at Kronos Prime, the latest world to fall. Our sensors detected a small vessel attempting to flee the system. Scans confirmed a single human life sign aboard. We have found him, the High Sovereign announced, his voice vibrating with anticipation. After all this trouble, the human Triesto escape in a shuttle, pathetic tractor, failed military response beam, that vessel into the main hangar. You want to meet this Torchbearer before his execution? I felt uneasy. Your Magnificence, this seems too easy. The High Sovereign fixed, his primary eyes on me. Are you suggesting this primitive outsmarted our entire fleet? I lowered my gaze, respectfully. No, Your Magnificence, but caution. But caution is for the weak, he interrupted. Execute my orders. The small craft was pulled into our hangar bay. Thelite guards surrounded it, weapons ready. The hatch opened, revealing Darius, Thorne, hands raised in apparent surrender. The famous Torchbearer, the High Sovereign said, approaching with an arrogant swagger not so impressive in person. Thorne smiled. Not a smile of fear or resignation, but of someone exactly where they plan to be. You know, Thorne said, conversationally, the problem with beings who evolve from predator species is that you never lose that instinct. To chase, what runs I counted on that. The High Sovereign's facial ridges flared with anger. Your psychological games won't save you. Your rebellion ends today. This was never my rebellion, Thorne replied. I just showed people they had the power all along, and now I'm showing them that even the High Sovereign isn't untouchable. That's when we all realized our terrible mistake. We'd brought the most dangerous human in the galaxy directly to our command ship alongside the highest leadership of the Dominion. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Reports flooded in of simultaneous sabotage across the entire sacred fleet. Weapons systems offline, engines compromised, and most disturbing, widespread mutiny among the lower ranks. What have you done? The High Sovereign demanded, his composure finally cracking. Thorne's eyes reflected the emergency lights, making them appear to burn like twin flames. I told you I'm just one man with a torch, but that's all you need to start a fire. The last thing As explosions rocked the command ship, the High Sovereign's guards moved to seize Thorne, but they hesitated just for a moment. That hesitation told me everything. The Torchbearer's reputation had reached even the elite guards, planting seeds of doubt in their minds. In that moment of hesitation, the hangar bay doors behind us burst open. Imported a mix of species humans, Krelvians, Jaxari, even Voxarians wearing modified uniforms. The rebels had infiltrated our ship long before we captured Thorne Protect. The High Sovereign! The guard captain shouted. Half the guards moved to form a protective circle. The other half turned their weapons on their comrades, and the High Sovereign's facial ridges went pale. What is the meaning of this treachery? One of the turncoat guards removed his helmet, revealing facial ridges bearing the markings of a lower caste. No treachery, Your Magnificence. Just recognition of a simple truth. We vastly outnumber you. Plasma fire erupted. Sacred fleet infiltration across the hangar bay. I dove behind a cargo container, my administrative training utterly useless in combat. From a hiding spot, I watched Darius Thorne casually stroll through the firefight, untouched, as if the chaos parted around him. You still don't understand what's happening, do you? Thorne said to the High Sovereign, who was now being restrained by his own guards. This was never about me versus you. It was about showing everyone what they already knew, but were afraid to say. Your empire is built on fear, not loyalty. The High Sovereign spat in Thorne's face. You think toppling me ends anything? Thedominion has stood for 10,000 cycles. We've crushed hundreds of rebellions. This is just another footnote in our glorious history. Thorne wiped his face, looking almost pitying. That's where you are. Wrong. This isn't a rebellion. It's a revelation. He turned toe dress. Everyone in the hangar, loyal guards, rebels, technicians, even cowering behind my container. The Voxarian Dominion isn't mighty because of its warships or wealth. It's mighty because we all agreed it was. We all played our parts. But what happens when people stop playing? Throughout the ship view, screens activated, showing Thorne's face, broadcasting his words to every deck, every corridor I have traveled to. 50 worlds in 3 months, he continued, not as a general leading armies, but as asteroid teller. I have told one simple story. You don't have to live like this. There's enough in this galaxy for everyone. The ones who claim to rule you only do so because you let them. A nearby explosion rocked the ship, nearly knocking me from my hiding place. Incoming transmission from the fleet, sir. One of the rebel technicians called out 80% of the Sacred Fleet vessels report successful internal takeovers. The remaining 20% have. Commanders requesting terms of surrender. Thorne nodded, then turned back to the High Sovereign. See no grand battles, no. Heroic last stands, just people deciding, all at once, to stop pretending. What will you do now? The High Sovereign demanded. Execute me, become the new tyrant, Thorne Loft. Execute you? No, that would make you a martyr. And I certainly don't want your throne. He leaned in close. I want something far worse for you. I want you. The revelation spreads to live as an ordinary citizen in the galaxy. You helped create no privileges, no power, just another being trying to make their way. The High Sovereign's facial ridges darkened with rage. I would rather die. I know, Thorne said simply. That's why death would be too merciful, as their bells secured the command. Ship I remained hidden, certain that discovery meant execution. I was, after all, a high-ranking administrator who had helped hunt the Torchbearer, but as the hours passed and the Sacred Fleet fell completely under rebel control, something unexpected happened. There were no mass executions, no revenge killings. Those who surrendered were simply relieved of duty and confined to quarters. It was baffling. 3 rotations later, as I survived one emergency ration stolen from storage compartments near my hiding place, the ship's internal sensors finally detected me. I was dragged before a tribunal of rebel leaders with Darius Thorne. Presiding Administrator Xantix, he said, reviewing my file on a datapad, you were recently promoted to Sector Command and tasked with my capture. I flattened my facial ridges in submission. I expect no mercy for doing my duty. Thorne looked up, those unnerving human eyes studying me. Your file says you warned about me from the beginning. You recognized the pattern when others dismissed it. My warnings were ignored, I said bitterly. Most warnings worth heeding are, Thorne replied. Tell me, Administrator, what do you think happens next? The question caught me off guard. You declare yourself the new ruler of the territories you have captured. Exactly, Thorne exclaimed, surprising me with his enthusiasm. That's why one government can't effectively rule thousands of worlds. Local problems need local solutions. Interplanetary issues need representatives from affected worlds working together. No empires, no dominions, just cooperation, where necessary, and autonomy where possible. It sounded like naive idealism. I said as much. Horn's response surprised me again. Of course, it's idealistic. All progress begins with someone being unreasonably idealistic. Reality catches up later. He consulted with the other tribunal members briefly, then turned back to me. Administrator Xantix, you have 2 options. Retirement to any non-strategic world of your choosing with sufficient resources to live comfortably but privately for a T-Aurora. I prompted when he paused. Join us. Help build something better than the Dominion. Your analytical skills identified me as a threat when others couldn't see it. Those same skills could help prevent new threats to the peace we're trying to build. I was stunned. You would trust a former enemy. Thorne smiled. Trust is built, not given. But everyone deserves the chance to be more than what an empire told them to be. And that moment changed everything for me. Not just my fate, but my understanding. I chose to join them, initially planning to spy for loyalist forces. But as weeks fall of the Dominion turned into months, I witnessed something remarkable unfold. The rebellion. No, the revelation, as Thorne called it, spread faster than anyone thought possible. Not through military conquest, but through communication. World after world simply stopped obeying the Dominion. Military vessels defected and mass colonial. Governors declared independence. Within 6 months, the mighty Voxarian Dominion controlled only its home system and a handful of nearby worlds. The rest had joined what became known as the Galactic Cooperative. Was there no resistance? Little Plavox interrupts my story. Surely the Dominion fought back. Oh, they tried, clever one. Their remaining loyalists launched desperate counterattacks, attempting to recapture strategic worlds. But each attempt only strengthened the cooperative. When Dominion forces arrived at formerly subjugated worlds, they found not ragtag rebels, but organized planetary defense forces composed of many species, working together, including former Dominion soldiers. The final battle, if you could call it, that came when the remnants of the Dominion fleet approached Voxaria, Prime itself, our home world. The newly formed Cooperative Defense Force intercepted them near the outer system. Communication channels were opened. Terms were offered, and then Plavox prompts her facial ridges twitching with excitement, and then nothing. No grand battle, no heroic last stand. The fleet commanders opened their gun ports in the traditional salute of surrender. Later many said they simply couldn't justify fighting to preserve a system that had already proven itself obsolete. As for the High Sovereign, he refused to accept the new reality, barricaded himself in the Imperial Palace with his most fanatical supporters threatened to detonate antimatter charges that would render Voxia Prime uninhabitable unless his rule was recognized. Darius Thorne himself led the team that infiltrated the palace, not to capture the High Sovereign, but to evacuate the service staff ordinary Voxians. Caught in the standoff. For 3 days they worked. In secret, creating escape routes, the High Sovereign's end smuggling out those who wished to leave. On the 4th day, the High Sovereign made good on his threat. The palace disappeared in a blinding flash visible from orbit. He chose destruction over adaptation. But thanks to Thorne's team, the only casualties were those who chose to stay. The High Sovereign and 200 loyalists. That's horrible, one of the young Lings whispers. Yes, it was a tragic end to a once great civilization, but also a beginning. From the ashes of the Dominion arose something new. Not perfect, but better. The galactic, cooperative thousands of worlds, hundreds of species each maintaining their cultural identity while working together on shared challenges. And what happened to the Torchbearer? Plavox asks, the question everyone asks. The official record says Darius Thorne perished in the palace explosions, sacrificing himself to save the last group of evacuees. Monuments were built, songs were composed. He became a legend, the one man with a torch who burned down an empire and lit a better path. But that's not true, is it, Elder Xantix? Plavox says, her compound eyes fixed on me with unnerving intensity. You wouldn't know all these details if he died there. Clever observant. Little one, you are right. Of course, the official record is incomplete. Days after the palace explosion, I received an encrypted message directing me to a small spaceport on the outskirts of the capital. There I found a nondescript cargo vessel and inside Darius, Thorne very much alive. You faked your death? I said, not entirely surprised. He nodded. Legends are more useful than leaders. If I stayed, people would look to home for answers. Instead of finding their own revolutions, often devour their heroes or worse, turn them into new tyrants. Where will you go? I asked. There are other empires out there, he said, looking toward the stars. Other beings living under boots, they have been told. They can't remove. I still have my torch. And me, I asked. Why tell me you are alive? The true legacy revealed, because someone needs to know the truth. Someone needs to understand that it was never about me. I didn't end